Thank you for joining us for this very important discussion. In Her Company is a growing platform for women discussing how we create, build, and live. What began as a weekly radio show in 2009 with over 16,000 listens featuring diverse women in business is now a company with an expanded mission to help women answer the question, what's next, execute a plan to get it, and birth their huge impossible visions. This mini-series is an expression of our commitment to women to help them live more powerfully for themselves and the greater good of the world around them. In Wielding Your Voice, we will explore what it means to do so, wielding the power of your voice at the roots of issues rather than toward each other. And we'll do this by touching on four key areas: passion, purpose, pain, and responsibility. My name is Chris Bond. I am In Her Company's creator and founder. I am also a published author of fiction featuring strong female characters and a consultant to multi-passionate women. Now, joining me to discuss purpose is Tanya Williams, the Amazon #1 best-selling author of A Child-Free Happily Ever After. She is the pink-loving, 4-inch heel-wearing, sparkly sheaf of everything at Digital Conversations and founder of the Child-Free Choices program, whose goal is to change the dialogue around being child-free from judgment, criticism, and adherence to rules to one of support and acceptance. Tanya believes in women making their own rules and doing what is right for their lives. Having worn many hats in her own life, her personal mantra is never let anyone dull your sparkle. Tanya, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very honored to be part of this conversation.
So, why are you taking part in this conversation?
I think it is really important for all women all around the globe to have a voice and to share and in what they believe in and stand up for others and have tough conversations and be present and in the world and be part of these really important conversations around women having a voice.
Thank you. Thank you. And by having a voice, of course, we're talking about more than just spouting the first thing that comes to mind, which is what so commonly happens, or just following along, regurgitating what everybody else has to say. So one of the key things, because there's so much now, not only in our respective countries, but there's so much going on worldwide. And, how do we decide what to lend our voice to?
I think you're absolutely right. There is a lot going on in the world. There are a lot of amazing causes and so forth. But I think for me, and I think it's really important that it has to be something that you're really passionate about and something that you think that you can impact change in some way. So, we all have opinions about everything. I mean, social media has proven that anyone can make an opinion or share a comment
Yes.
or do anything very quickly. That is
Yes,
the
they
world we
can.
live in, right? So, it's easy just to click a button and share something or make a comment on something behind a screen.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to lend your voice to causes or issues that you believe in, and that's certainly something that I do. So obviously I'm very passionate about supporting child-free women around the world. There are lots of great causes. There are lots of injustices and wrongs in the world as well, but I think obviously some will resonate more individually than others. For me, I can't stand, animal cruelty of any kind.
Yes.
I very strongly believe in education for girls, particularly in third world countries where they don't have access to education. So they don't understand that they do have a choice and a voice in their community. So I think it's really important to be able to provide education for girls who don't have that. And even things like homelessness is something that I'm really passionate about. It breaks my heart to see people living on the streets and not being able to fulfill their best lives and so forth. So I regularly donate toiletries and food and stuff like that throughout the year to where I can, even if it's in little amounts, because I think every little bit adds up. So I think lending your voice to a cause is a very personal thing. We are all obviously very different and we have different causes that resonate with us. But I think, every one person can impact positive change in some little way. And all those little ways add up. So it's about trying to
Yes.
find what it is for you as an individual that you believe it is important to lend your voice to. And for me, I've chosen those causes, but in particular, the conversation around being child-free.
So, what you're saying is that it is fine no matter how many causes you lend your voice to. And of course, we're not talking about every single cause because you can dilute your own voice, and
Yeah,
that's in no way what we want to do. But to start with what resonates with you personally, um, one of the challenges, of course, is that people are very much nowadays attached to their social media accounts. So, how do they kind of withdraw or draw themselves away from this to actually hear or feel, perhaps both, what
yeah.
resonates with them?
I think it starts with being mindful and taking a beat. I think it's very easy to quickly react to something when you see it, particularly on social media, because you're scrolling through something, grabs your attention, you stop, you read it, and it's easy to go, oh, I'm going to comment on that. But I think it's
Mhm.
really important to go, hang on a minute, let me just take a second and look at and read this in more detail, because I think it's really easy to look at a headline as well and not actually go in and click and read on a full story. So often you're
Yes,
getting part of the story because the headline's clickbait, for example, and
of
you're not
course.
actually commenting on a true story. So I think it's important to actually read and educate yourself around this. And I think we saw a lot of this during COVID. I know here there was so much commentary and so many things happening on social media and people sharing their opinion, and so much of it wasn't based on fact. It was
Right.
based on opinion. So I think it's really important to discriminate between the two and go, is this fact or is this just someone's opinion on something?
Mhm.
If it is factual, then I think it's important just to take a moment and go, okay, before I comment, let me just think about this. Is this something that I think is important for me to have a voice on and comment around? Do I think my opinion matters in this circumstance? Is it something that I'm passionate about? So even asking yourself those few questions, because I often see things and I go, look, I don't agree with that. I'm not going to, comment on it. It's not something that, I'm passionate about or whatever. I can say, well, this is my opinion. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's not going to change someone else's opinion or whatever it might be. So I think you need to sort of be able to filter through what we're seeing, particularly on social media and digital channels and so forth, and say, well, hang on, what is it that I am really passionate about, that I do believe that I should stand up and have a voice in, and where do I think I can impact change, rather than just being part of every conversation, and
Right.
obviously you can do that anyway. So I think just being
Right.
mindful about that is really important.
Yeah, because there are, people often think they have to say something about everything. I'm like, no, no, you you don't. First of all, that's tiring. But I love what you said because that's very, very human. We sometimes we say things. It's like, wait a minute. That's kind of like one of those knee jerk reactions. It's like, no, I
Yeah,
don't believe that. What I really meant was, and is you want to make sure that, like you're saying, the purpose is to have some kind of impact, positive impact, of course,
yeah, yeah.
to create change in certain situations, whether they're issues or even just, your own life.
Hmm.
So, how do like there's a lot that's going on which we've already established, but the things that are compelling, like there are some things meant for us to enjoy personally. Okay. Being a consultant, I've seen people take something that is like a personal practice, like tea, for example. They love tea, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna build this business around here, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to be, number one tea salesperson in America, and I'm having fun here.
Yeah,
But then they go into business. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. This is not what I want. I'm like, yeah, this is something for you to enjoy, for you to share as you meet people.
yeah,
What compels you lies elsewhere. So amidst all the plethora of choices that we have in the world, like what are some guidelines that perhaps you yourself have used to kind of, delve down and see what really is compelling me to speak.
Yeah. Look, I think for me, I'm a very creative person. So I have 1,000 ideas a day. I think every one of them is a fantastic idea, of
Do
course.
you keep a journal where you write them
Yeah,
down and like
well,
come
I've
back
started
the
to
next
do
day?
that. I just make notes on my phone now, so I have a list. So I
Okay.
think, okay, I've got this great idea. I thought I'll just write it down. I'll put it in my phone, because what I used to do would be go off and quickly execute it and go, I've got this great idea, and I'd go and I'd create a web page for it, and I'd do this and I'd do all this stuff, and then I'd be like, oh, hang on a minute, I didn't really think that through properly. So I'd spend all this time and effort, and it wouldn't really come to fruition at the end of the day, because I was putting the time and effort into the wrong thing. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to be more mindful of that and go, okay, I've got this idea. I'll write it down. So I'll put it in my phone, and then I might come back to it a week later and go, okay, do I
Yeah.
still think that's a great idea or not? Okay, yeah, maybe I'll leave that sitting there. So I will revisit it for it could be even a couple of months, because I might, and then if I do think there is something to it, so it's valid, then I go, okay, there's something with that I want to develop. But it's not something that I need to do now. It may be something that I need to
Right.
do in 6 or 12 months. So I look at what that timeline might be as well. So if it's obviously business related, I might go, hey, this is something I need to execute for my clients or as a project or whatever straight away. And other things are, a longer burn as such. So I remember when I got the idea for the book, like when I first had the idea for my book, it was probably, 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I'd
Okay.
been interviewed for a local magazine, and with a few other women. And I thought, oh, this is a great conversation. I think this would make a great book. So I wrote like 4 pages or something and went, and that's as far as I got, because I don't know, it just fell by the wayside, or whatever else. It wasn't for me at that time that an important thing. And then 2 years ago, nearly 3 years ago now, when I revisited it, it was triggered from a Facebook post that someone had written, and I went, wow, people are really passionate about this kids versus no kids conversation. And I went,
Hmm.
now is the time to write this book. So again, I'd had the idea a long time ago. It had sat there. It was sort of like this dormant idea. I thought someday I would do something with it. Um, and it just came up. There was it was a right timing for it. It was, I started to look at all these conversations that were happening out, on social media, out in the digital world. I was doing all this research, looking at what books had been written already. And funnily, ironically enough, my book, from idea to launch, took 9 months.
Wow.
A book
Okay.
about being child free. So it was like,
Okay.
wow, that's the same amount of time it takes to have a baby. That's crazy.
Yeah. Go figure,
So,
right?
yeah, but it was the right time. So I think, it's about recognizing that, hey, I've got these ideas, and there's all these different things that I can lend a voice to and do that. But when is the right time to do that for you as a person? And,
Mhm.
at the time I was like, okay, well, that was just a personal thing. I didn't think I would ever turn that into any sort of business. So I was like, yep, I've written this book. It's a bucket list type thing that I've done that. But then again, in having conversations in the corporate space and so forth, I went, there's more that I can do with this. So I need to carry this and create this business around it, to give more, women in the workplace a voice around how they're being treated as child-free women, to open this up as a global conversation to women all around the world, and provide support and programs and so forth. So it's sort of, again, I wasn't planning that when I wrote the book, but it came through conversations and what was happening in my environment and around the world. So happen organically like that. And you can just sort of choose to go with the flow. Other times, obviously, they're more strategic and more planned. So it really depends on your situation.
Yeah, and as a fellow author, I can attest to that because you can try to write a book before it's time, and
Yeah,
you just can't do it. You can force it, and it will come across as force. I
yeah,
also liked your idea, and to our multi passionate sisters who are watching this, I hope you caught what Tanya said. Write it down, come back to it and
mm,
see if it's, was your harebrained idea for the moment or if there's something there. And because,
yeah,
being a multi-passionate, we see things in layers. We see the whole pie, and our issue is not how to tackle the one thing, but how to tackle the entire vision. So yeah, multi-passionate women. If you heard that, please, that's a tip for you.
And that's the
Um,
thing, I think as women, we don't have to do just one thing either. Like, I
yeah,
think of it like
exactly.
diamonds. I think we have all these sides and all these facets, and there's
Yes,
no reason why we can't, share all those sides and have all these different projects and wear all these different hats. I don't think we just have to be known as one thing in life. And that's something that I'm really passionate
exactly.
about, is being my best me and going, well, what are all the great things that I want to do? And there's no reason why I can't do them, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, like-minded.
I love
Is
it.
me. I also like how you came about your path. You kind of found your path after you wrote the book, and you had no idea where this was going to lead you, but you're following that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's continuing to lead you into other opportunities, to the extent that you're now able to create opportunities for other to bring healing to their lives, as
Yeah.
well as some camaraderie. So in alignment with that, oftentimes when we hear people speak nowadays, they are speaking at the moment, they're speaking to the moment.
Mhm.
In some cases, it is very apparent that they have no idea what the end result of their words are,
Yep.
or what the outcome that they're seeking by speaking. And we already know, and we can acknowledge, ideas have consequences. Also, we're in an environment that people are speaking without responsibility or accountability for their words. So these are topics that we could explore either one of these and speak on either one of those: accountability, responsibility, the end results. That can be an
Mhm.
entire conversation in itself. But for the
Yeah.
sake of this discussion, what are some ways that people can take what once they decided what to lend their voice to? How do they decide what to say, and to say that in such a way that it lines up with the end result that they're seeking?
Yeah. Look, you know, it can be difficult because, as you said, there's so many conversations that are happening, and there's so many things that we can lend the voice to in that respect. But it can be difficult to use the right words in content and in conversations. But I think for me, I try to be mindful of what I'm saying. I mean, obviously, there are times that I stuff up, I choose the wrong words, I make mistakes. I'm only human, but I'm
Right,
the first person to put my hand up and say, hang on, I own that. That was my mistake. And I think when you said that point about accountability, I was like nodding my head, going, "Oh my god, yes!" Because I think these days, no one wants to be accountable for their actions because it's easy to
right,
blame someone else for everything. And
right,
that's one of my pet peeves. It's like, oh my God, take responsibility and ownership of something, because I will have a much more respect for someone who does that and say, it's okay, you are human, you buggered
right,
up,
right.
but you owned it. So therefore I will respect that. But I think, again, when I'm asked to speak at events, when I'm doing interviews, when I'm just in conversation with people, I'm trying to be mindful of the end result or the end vision of what I'm trying to achieve. So, my goal is to change the dialogue around how we have this conversation about being child free in
Okay,
society. So across the globe. So I'm always trying to think, well, there's a bigger picture to this. There are all these conversations happening on different Facebook pages and different groups and so forth. And some of them I just go, you know what, that's just, I can have a voice around some of that, but the outcome and what you guys are trying to do just doesn't align for what I'm trying to do as well. We all have
good.
different goals and objectives with that sort of stuff. So I think there needs to be some sort of alignment.
Mhm.
Um, and it can be very easy to go off course and veer down, a different path, or go down that rabbit hole and then think, hang on a minute, this is not actually adding anything to the conversation that I'm trying to bring to
Right.
light.
Right.
Because, in the digital world, we know that it's easy to, you get onto YouTube and you watch one video and you're watching something else and then you get
And
onto
then you're
groups.
looking at flag posts in England. It's like, where's the
Yeah,
squirrel?
and
Wait a
you
minute.
quickly go from one over there, and you're like, hang on a minute, where am I?
Like, what was I looking for?
Yeah. So I think it is, and it can be really hard to be mindful and to pull yourself back and go, hang on a minute, I'm going off the path here. So for me, I try and go, what's my big picture? I have a vision board, so I have a vision board that sits beside me. So sometimes when I'm writing or talking about a particular topic, I have to look at my vision board and go, remember what your end goal is. What are you trying to achieve? Stay on track and stay focused to the right types of conversations that will get you there, rather than being involved in all these little conversations that are just bright and shiny things that really aren't going
Yes.
to impact where I'm trying to go. So I think bright and shiny often
Yes.
it just detracts from the conversations that we need to have. Whereas staying focused on the right types of conversations and aligning those words to the right types of conversations, it can be hard, but it's important to stay focused and be mindful of that.
And we owe that to each other, right? Like
Yeah,
because given that there is a bigger picture, which I think also at times that we forget, is
yeah,
easy, especially if your emotions are involved, is easy to forget that there's a larger picture and that we're a part of it or we're just in it. People speak to the moment, and it's common that they do so in a way that it's like they're in a silo, their resistance, and people are just hearing my voice, my megaphone. But then when the words come back to you, whether it
yeah,
be in an article, somebody else's blog post, it's like, oh my gosh, no, no, that's not what I meant. I'm like, but that's what you said.
mm,
So we owe that to one another, especially if we want to have a positive impact and we want to change things for the better. We owe that to one another to be more responsible when we speak.
yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
Yeah. What are some possible pitfalls, though? Because you can say all the right
yeah.
words, you can say the right things, but just by nature of our voice, what are some of the pitfalls that either
Yeah,
we
look, I
may
think,
fall into?
I think you need to be quite strong and have, I suppose, thick skin as well, because when you do have a voice and you are vocal about choices that you've made or causes that you are passionate about, you do open yourself up for criticism. So you will be criticized, you probably will be judged, there will be people that attack you and so forth. I've had people leave, and actually a lot of the time it's men that are leaving nasty comments about my choice and that I'm not a woman and all these sorts of things, and my job is to have children and stuff like that. And you know what, like, I go, okay, whatever, that's your opinion. I've got fairly thick skin. I let it roll off my back. But I just think that that's more of a reflection on them anyway, not me.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I
Exactly.
think, yes, you need to open yourself up to having tough conversations, because someone will disagree with you.
Mhm.
But you also need to be respectful of other people's opinions as well. So I think sometimes it's easy to go back and attack or defend yourself, rather than going, you know what, that's fine, that's your opinion, we can agree to disagree. And not getting involved too much with some of these arguments that just won't get you anywhere. So I think you need to be prepared for that. So it's great to be vocal and have a voice, but at the same time, there are going to be people that disagree with that, which is fine. I have
And that's
no
okay.
problem at all with someone disagreeing with me. None at all. And as I said, I'm respectful. I go, that's fine. That's your opinion. This is my
Right.
opinion. We can still live in the world quite happily together. I'm not going to block you because you disagree with me. It's just
Exactly.
about being respectful of each other's opinions and choices. So I think you just need to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned opinion several times, and it's an educated opinion,
Yes.
one that's formed after having given thought. is not the uneducated opinion that follows along with the next bandwagon coming by, or that
Yeah,
gets, pushed along by the crowd of groupthink or whatnot. So
very,
we're talking about
very
education.
important point. Yeah. No, it is. As I said, it needs to be. That is a very important point. It has to be an educated opinion as well. It's like, well, do you even have any sort of authority to talk on this? Do you even know what this issue is about? Like, are you educated about it, or are you just, it's an off the cuff reaction? They're two
Right,
very different things.
right, right. It's nothing
Yeah.
like coming to a conversation unarmed. But yeah, that's a different discussion too.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we know what resonates with us, now that we know what we want to say, let's talk about something that's a little bit, or that can be a little bit stickier, which is using our voice on behalf of someone. Like, for example, the homeless individuals that
Mhm.
you mentioned, um, or an organization, maybe we're a volunteer in some way. Um, what are some considerations that we should give thought to that are different than when we're just speaking? Because these issues are the same. We're going to assume, just for the sake of conversation,
Mhm.
that whatever we vocalize, whatever we're lending our voice to, what compels us to speak, are the same when we're speaking on behalf of the individuals or organizations. But what are some things that we may need to consider before we do that?
Yeah. Look, I think it's important to understand from them what their issues are. So, for example, if I use that issue of homelessness, you know, I have done a little bit of volunteer work. I'm planning to do some more and so forth. And just to sit down and have a conversation with someone that's in that situation to really truly understand what it is they need and not making an assumption is a big thing, because we can just make an assumption and go, oh, they need this and they need that and they need these other things. But
And it's like, no,
that's
they don't.
that's one part of what we're seeing from the
Yeah.
outside in. So I think when we align ourselves with a cause, or we think, oh, we need to be someone else's voice or help them have a voice, we need to
Mhm.
really understand what it is they actually want to start with. So what is it that they need? What is it that they want? So then we can share that out rather than sharing what we think they might need out. So I think that's a really important distinction, because it's easy to make an assumption about something,
Oh, yes.
but really truly understanding and having a conversation with them and letting them share their voice. They might not have the capacity to be able to share it with a lot of people, or not be confident to do that and so forth. So I think it's really important to be able to stand up beside other people that don't have that voice or that confidence to have those conversations and say, what is it that you want to share? How can I help you do that? How can we as a community help you do that? And let them have a voice in a different way. So even though we might not be hearing from them firsthand, um, understanding what it is they need and sharing that through third parties, through other people, through ourselves, um, is something that we can do by understanding what is needed.
That's good. That's good. Because everybody has a right to their own voice.
Yeah,
Um, and there are a lot of assumptions that get drawn in different situations, and they haven't even spoke to the people that they want to help. Yeah,
yeah,
which is a sad thing. It's like, how can you speak on behalf of something, but you on behalf of something, meaning an organization, or on behalf of someone, and you know zero about it. You
yeah,
know, yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of bold.
So you need to educate yourself about it a bit more before I think you start having very informed opinions about it, because at least that way it's based on educated opinion, as you said, rather than just an off the cuff assumption.
Yeah, and it's okay if your experience also does not mirror the experiences of what's commonly out there. Like, we have
Yeah.
thought leaders now, um, and we have people that have causes that they care about. I'm speaking of our celebrities and whatnot. And when someone first begins to use their voice, the tendency is to, okay, how do one, I need to find people who are saying the same thing, because, people listen to them. They have the followers, they're the influencers. And but when their experiences or when their research doesn't line up with that, it's like, no, it's just as valid, but you can see
Mm,
how they may feel that, oh my gosh, am I really qualified to speak this? Because everybody else is focused on this, but I see this.
yeah.
It makes it a little bit more of a challenge.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's why I think, it's great to have thought leaders on a particular topic or an area, but those thought leaders need to be educated about the issue at hand as well. As you said, rather than going, oh, well, I'm being paid or I'm being sponsored or whatever
Yeah.
to be a thought leader or be a face of this particular brand or lend my voice to it. But, they need to educate themselves and make sure that they actually do know what they're talking about. Otherwise, it doesn't actually add any value or impact in the conversation.
Yeah. Same result.
Yeah.
Can you share with us either lessons learned or perhaps a personal experience that you've had in light of purpose, which is what we're discussing today?
Yeah, sure. Sure. I've learnt throughout my life not to be afraid of, I suppose, never to be afraid of being me. I think as we
Mhm.
grow up, and I think some of that comes with getting older. So as
Yeah.
I think we get more and more comfortable in our own skin. I mean, you think about when we're at school, you want to dress the same as everybody else. It's like, what are you wearing? Oh, I'm going to wear the exact same thing, and you want to blend in, like you want to just be the same as everybody else. But as you get older, you start to, you know, get your own individual thoughts and opinion and style and so forth, and you become more and more confident of standing out and being who you truly are. So I think that's something I wish I had have known or thought when I was younger, that it's okay to be different. It's okay not to be exactly like everybody else. I think I've always been a very outgoing, exuberant personality, so I've never had an issue in saying what I think. I know not everyone is like that, but again, my personal experiences has been, if I don't use my voice, I'm not doing what I should do, because we have a voice for a reason, so we should use it. I think over the years I have been discriminated against in different roles, in different jobs, because I haven't had children. Therefore, you've got all this time on your hands, so you can stay back and work these extra
Wow.
hours. You can do this, and you don't have a family, so therefore, your time off isn't as important as their time off. And there's been all these types of things that have
So
happened.
let
And
me manipulate your time for you, basically.
yeah, because you
Yeah.
don't have kids,
No,
so therefore you have
no.
nothing else happening in your life. So those types of things. So for me, I learned very quickly to stand up for myself and go, hang on a minute, no, that's not fair. I'm not going to do that. So I think as we go through life, we all have different experiences. How we react to those experiences says a lot. I think it's important to push back and
Yes.
stand up when things are wrong and say, no, that is not okay, that is unacceptable. But I think too often, particularly women, don't do this as well, where we'll just go, oh, I'll take it, I'll wear that on the chin, because if I say something, it's going to upset the apple cart, and I could get into trouble, or it could impact a promotion, or whatever else. And I think particularly women standing up for other women in the workplace as well and saying, hey, that's not right, you shouldn't say that to someone, or there shouldn't be a different set of rules around that, or whatever. And I
Exactly.
think
But that goes
too
back
often,
to what we were saying, right? About
yeah,
you have to count the cost. That's one of the
yeah,
considerations.
yeah. And I
Not that
think,
you don't pay it.
yeah, women standing up for other women, and we talk about this sisterhood, and I often say the sisterhood is BS, because too often women are dragging each other down rather than trying to actually stand beside them and raise them up. And that's been a lot of my experience in particularly in the workplace. It's like you just want to climb over me to get to this job and whatever, and we're all supposed to be supporting each other and doing this in
Exactly.
life. And I think there's too much of that. So I've learned, that it's okay to have a voice. Don't be afraid to be who you are, and certainly stand up for what you believe in as well. So whatever that might be, I think it's really important to do that.
Yes, most definitely. Now, there was a lot, of course, a lot of wisdom that you just said right there. But succinctly, do you have like any final words of wisdom for the women who have yet to walk their path, or the ones who are right now with the
Yeah.
purpose of their voice?
I think it's important that all women remember that they have a choice and they have a voice, and they should make their own rules, and they should never let anyone dull their sparkle. I think that's a personal mantra of mine. I think women need to
Yes,
remember to be true to themselves and what they want in their life, because you need to live your life for you, no one else. I think it's really important to surround themselves with like-minded women, because it is easy to have people who are friends or acquaintances or workmates or whatever that don't think like you, want to drag you down, don't want you to be in the spotlight, and don't necessarily support you being the best version of yourself. So I think surrounding yourself with women who want to be a cheerleader is really important. And also, as well as in your personal life, is finding a partner that's not afraid to let you shine as well. So, your partner should want you to be in the spotlight and should want you to be the best version of yourself. So I think that is really important, to find someone that does that and will stand beside you and behind you, and go, hey, I'm going to push you forward and let you have that spotlight. I think, as I think all women need that.
yes. That is so crucial because your choice of a spouse or your choice of, if you're dating, is either going to help you or hinder you in becoming
Mhm.
who you ultimately are. So, yeah, Tanya, thank you so much for the wisdom and insight that you shared today. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me have a voice and being part of the conversation.
Right. So, listeners, viewers, I hope you have found today's conversation insightful toward helping you better wield your voice. I invite you to become part of this growing platform for women that we are building within her company. And I look forward to your feedback, not only on this segment, but the other segments in the series. So, once again, my name is Chris Bond. This is In Her Company.